What an incredible power you wield in creating change in your experience of suffering. Join me this week as we take a look at forgiveness, compassion, and your experience with suffering, and how being able to give yourself forgiveness is a key to longevity and healing. Hi, I'm Adrienne Irizarry. I'm an East Asian medicine practitioner who is passionate about women's health and helping women to live their best lives. My goal is to put you in the driver's seat of your health, offering holistic solutions for a symptom-free life.
Statements made in this program are for educational purposes only and not intended as a substitution for medical consultation or advice. We do not claim to diagnose, treat, or cure any diseases. This podcast is inclusive and welcomes all gender identities. The focus of the program is on biological function, and we will use the term women throughout, but it is referencing physiological and social challenges for biology, not identity. Come as you are, I am happy you're here and welcome all performances of identity. I hope you find something helpful in this show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Reproductive Rebel podcast. This week, we're going to talk about a topic that is really popular in storytelling, and it's stories that we also tell ourselves. So let me elaborate. Think about some of your famous fantasy fiction, or think about some of your favorite TV shows. What often occurs in these shows? One really common theme in literature, movies, TV shows is that somebody screws up and they beat themselves up over it. And I should have been there. I should have done that. I shouldn't have gone on this quest because this attack happened on my village. I shouldn't have responded to that call because it allowed for this other thing to happen, right? And then the character holds that energy, that feeling of being stuck for a big piece of the book or the story or the show. Sound familiar? So we do this in our own lives too, where something happens and we blame ourselves. And if I hadn't done this, then this. Or if I had made this other choice, then this would have been different, right? It's really, really common. There's a part of me that feels like it's really common because we were raised with that kind of narrative, right? I mean, if you look at children's stories, Disney movies, things like that, it's kind of like we've had this theme reinforced over and over and over again that if we do something that is in alignment with what we see in front of us, and it takes us out of, being there for an event that happened or being able to support somebody in the way that we would want to, or I'm listening to a fantasy fiction series right now because thank God for Audible. When I have a little person, it's really hard to pick up a book these days. But one of the stories that I'm listening to, one of the core characters just had this big news in their life, and they're like, oh, I shouldn't have left because now this big tragedy happened at home. So we have this theme reinforced for us over and over and over again throughout our lives, and we internalize that kind of a conversation where we really truly believe that we have more control over our surroundings, our life, our constructs than we really do. We can influence things, we can work towards things, we can work to manifest the things that we want in our life, but there are bigger powers at play. And when we hold this, I should have been there, I should have done that, I needed to have done something differently, we hold on to that, we remain stuck. We remain stuck in the past. It's like somebody who, and I'm going to just flag this as a trigger warning for anybody who has experienced sexual assault like I have. But I was stuck in that story for a long time saying to myself, if I hadn't worn that dress, if I didn't show up that day, if I didn't, this thing wouldn't have happened to me. And the truth of the matter is I'm not the one that made that decision. They did. And it took me many, many years to be able to see it from a different perspective. So I want you to think, and I'm inviting you to think about what is going on in your life or what has transpired in your life that you are holding on to that is keeping you stuck. Because when we are unable to forgive ourselves, whether it's a choice that we made, a direction that we went in, a person that we chose to have a relationship with, whatever it is, you as the main character of your story made a choice that felt in alignment with the information that you knew at the time. It didn't work out the way that you thought it would. Is that your fault? What lessons were learned from it? Forgive yourself for it not being the way that you anticipated. Now, this idea of forgiveness is a hard one. It's really, really hard because this is asking you to release cause and effect and memory of these contractions of energy that create suffering. When we hold on to things and we're unable to let go of them and forgive them and transmute them in love, I look back at a few decisions that I made earlier on in my life, and for a long time, I had a hard time to have compassion for myself. I was like, if I had chosen differently, if I had listened to my body wisdom, because my body wisdom told me. I remember putting invitations into a mailbox and having my entire body light up and scream at me, "Don't do it." And I did it anyway because my ego brain could logic out and reason and rationalize why this was a good idea. But everything in my body, intuition, was screaming at me not to do it. And I did it anyway. And then I had several years of suffering that resulted from not honoring that body wisdom. And I stayed stuck in that. I kept telling myself over and over again, like, you should have listened to your body. You should have done this differently. You should have seen the signs. You should have, right? That is stuck energy. You remain stuck in the past. You remain stagnant in time when you're unable to let things go. And believe me, it is hard. It is hard when we are a soul having a human experience, when we are energy and spirit having a human experience, to compartmentalize that. Because believe me, I've had times in my life where I'm like, wow, I do not know how I'm going to let this go because I'm so angry right now, or I'm so frustrated, or I'm so disappointed. And the truth of the matter is when we're able to free ourselves from stuck energy of judgment, comparison, and competition, and forgive the way that the divine does with unconditional love, we free up so much energy in our body. We don't have as many illnesses. I think back to that time in my life that I was just telling you that I had denied listening to my body wisdom and I listened to my ego brain instead. Those were some of the sickest years of my life. And as a old fart in my 40s now, I can look back at my 20s and go, wow, that decision physically made me ill for a while until I acknowledged that I had made a decision. I needed to make another decision. It didn't feel good. There were parts of me that were super sad about the decision that I had to make, but I had to let that decision go because I was creating my own suffering. And in so many cases, I mean, just look at all of these stories that I was talking about, like this fiction novel, right? This fiction novel that I'm reading, it's reinforcing that the character has to go through this level of suffering in order to move the storyline along. But when we hold suffering and we refuse to forgive ourselves for being human and not attaining perfection and not comparing ourselves to other people or whatever it is that you're doing, we remain stuck. And when you stay stuck, you're not able to grow. You're not able to show up in the world the way that you want to. And that stuck energy begins to manifest itself as illness. For me, that stuck energy showed up as migraines. It showed up as disharmony in my gut. I had really bad cycle-related problems. There were so many things. And being able to have compassion for that part of you that doubts itself and believes that it can never make mistakes or fail. When you hold compassion for that part of you, you're able to recognize the divine within you as the seed of compassion for yourself and others.
And now we take a break from our program for a special message. Beloved one, the time of activation has arrived. The ancient ways are calling, and the portal to sacred healing is open. If you've been feeling the pull to deepen your wisdom in holistic women's health, let me tell you about Rebel Rising, the 2.0 evolution of our practitioner training program. The Rebel Rising program is a sacred container for those ready to reclaim the lost arts of feminine healing. This year, we are offering 2 powerful paths of study: pelvic steaming, a deep remembrance of womb healing and energetic clearing, and sound healing, where vibrational medicine meets embodied restoration. If you feel the resonance, trust it. Classes begin March 26th, and an exclusive tuition discount is available through February 28th. The portal won't stay open forever. Enrollment closes March 24th. If you are ready to rise, visit moonessence.life to claim your space. The time is now. And now, back to the show.
So, compassion and forgiveness really do walk hand in hand with one another because these are things that arise from within you. You can't look for this validation outside of yourself or look to others to fill your love tank in any other way. If you're unable to really sit with forgiving yourself, and forgiveness of self is hard. It's easier to forgive others in a lot of cases than it is to forgive ourselves because we have this false sense of control over our life. I'm going to keep going back to this fictional character in this book that I'm reading because it really does model what happens in day-to-day life. They were put on a quest to go and do something on the behalf of a king. Yes, I really like fantasy fiction. They were supposed to do something on behalf of a king, and they get there to deliver this message only to find out that the kingdom that they were there in service of had been conquered by another entity and another power. And that meant that their loved ones had been endangered, and then there was question whether loved ones were hurt or alive and all of these kinds of things. And this character started this interior monologue with themselves around, should I have left? What could I have done? I wish I had done things differently. What if my family is hurt? And on and on and on. Like they were to blame for that situation, but they weren't. They made a decision to go on this quest. in alignment with what they had for information at the time that they left. We do this in our daily life all the time. We make decisions to the best of our ability with the information that we have in front of us. And that's all we can do. We don't have control over things that are bigger than that. And then when those choices don't end up panning out, I'll use my own life as an example. I was put on birth control as a teenager. I didn't know then all of the bad stuff that it could mean for me. My mom didn't know then, because if my mom had known, she never would have put me on it. But we made the decisions then. I was suffering. It was taking me out of school. I was having debilitating migraines. The doctor said, this pill is going to fix it. So, of course, both of us were like, we trust the doctor. We believed at the time that they had the best interest in mind. And I'm not saying that they didn't. They were working with the toolkit that they had available to them. But the challenge lies in that now we have that hindsight 2020, and I had a heart attack on said birth control, and that changed the course of my life. My emancipation from birth control changed the partners that I was attracted to and all kinds of things in my life. I remember when the birth control effect wore off and I felt like that cloud lifted, and I remember looking at my life going, how did I get here? Because it was affecting how I moved through the world and experienced my day-to-day, the relationships that I had. And I could have really resented my mom for putting me on it and blamed, right? Placed blame and stayed stuck in that narrative of I was harmed by this thing. I could have really had it arrest my quality of life in a big way. And instead, I look at that point in my life with compassion, and I forgive my younger self. I forgive my mom, because the thing is she made the decisions with the information she had available to her. She trusted that the doctor had my best interest in mind. I trusted both of them that they had my best interest in mind, not knowing to ask bigger questions. Most people don't. But I could have stayed stuck in this did harm to me. And some people do stay in that frequency, and it shows in their health and well-being. So I bring all of this to the forefront as a thought experiment. This is not to throw shade or have anyone feel shame or anything like that. That is not the focus of this episode. If shame is coming up for you, get curious. Why do you feel shame or guilt arising as you listen to this? What does it hold for you? Right? Love expands and fear contracts. So if you're holding this energy and you feel blocked in some way, notice your present experience or situation and ask yourself questions around, where have you judged yourself? Where has that energy contracted your life force and kept you stuck? Wherever that pain of contraction is, it will lodge itself in your body until you allow and release it. And for so many women, we end up locking fear and shame and some of these old narratives in our womb space and our reproductive system. So this will show up and manifest as symptoms when we can't forgive ourselves. Maybe we've been forgiven externally for something, but we still hold guilt and shame and judgment for a decision we made or a thing that we did. So this episode is to invite you to get curious around places where you can feel that contraction, fear arise, energy feeling stuck, and ask yourself, why do I feel stuck here? Comparison and competition truly serve suffering in the mind. So we have an opportunity to step into being the boss, taking control of our own narrative. Letting go of things that no longer serve us is so liberating and freeing. And when it comes to forgiveness of self, it can be one of the hardest asks you'll ever make. I know that I've done a lot of work around this because I did spend years of my life feeling angry that I wish I had known, I wish I had done differently. My life would be different if. And the thing is that's all in the past. It does not serve my future. It does not enlighten me in any way. It does not help serve where I want to go in life. So the only person that's holding me back is me. And when I came to that conclusion and I realized that I'm essentially enabling my own suffering by not letting this thing go, I started really digging into why does it bother me so much? And what it boiled down to is I had the wisdom within me and I ignored it. And the biggest regrets that I have in my life, I can point to where I had a body wisdom response, meaning my physical body responded before my mind did. And my physical body contracted and went, whoa, nope, this doesn't feel good to me. And my brain got involved. My lovely Aquarian brain got involved and started saying, oh, but this is logical. Here's how I can rationalize this. I don't know, Adrian. This actually does seem like a good idea, even though you're having this fear response. And I laugh now because it sounds so silly coming out of my mouth, but it felt at the time like such a high stakes, high pressure thing. And I made a couple of those decisions because I was afraid of the judgment that would come if I stood in my own power and said, this doesn't feel aligned to me. This doesn't feel right to me. I don't want to move forward with this. It doesn't feel good to me because I was so afraid of the judgment and the naysaying that was going to come with being a sovereign being and standing in my power and saying, this doesn't feel aligned to me. The older I've gotten, I really feel like I've stepped into my power that way. And that tends to happen with age for a whole bunch of reasons. Your give a fuck factor goes down drastically. It's one of the most freeing things I think about being in my 40s now is I am for some people and I'm not for others, and that's okay, right? And I'm inviting you to look at things the same way, regardless of where you are in your life. Your body knows before your brain does. There's a reason why fight or flight happens. And a lot of times in a situation like that, your body will respond and it takes a beat for your brain to catch up. So when you honor what it is that your body is asking of you, you'll always be doing things in alignment. And in those moments where you have made choices that don't feel aligned to you, they're not forever. And they aren't something to hold yourself accountable for. The more you hold on to energy, the more it has the opportunity to mastatize. So I think about this idea of letting go. Letting go is the energy of the bladder. And when people have a hard time letting go, I've seen many cases of people where it's become bladder cancer or other disharmonies of the bladder because they just simply could not let it go. So this is just one example of how this kind of stuck energy has an opportunity to manifest into something a little more insidious and that you don't want. So I'm inviting you to step into compassion, to forgive yourself, no matter what you think you've done, because true compassion sees in flawless clarity. It sees beyond the tiny confines of your ego and your ego brain. And it will chip away at that illusion because it wants to break free. Recognize what needs to be forgiven and forgive yourself. It's an embrace without condition, and you can really feel it. Have compassion for that part of you which doubts itself and believes it can make mistakes or fail. Because in reality, you're not failing, you're growing. Sometimes growth is hella painful, but you're not failing, you're growing. And in a lot of cases, decisions like this actually move you in alignment with what you're called to do, what you're meant to do. Your story shapes how you show up in the world. I know that these decisions that I've made, that I had to learn how to give myself compassion for, made me a better healer, made me a better mother, made me a better wife, made me a better partner. So, again, thought experiment, okay? Sit with places that you feel energy stuck in your body and ask, how can I forgive myself? And it will probably make you cry, but that's okay. You're releasing that stuck energy. Let the tears flow. Punch a mattress. I don't care. If there is energy that is coming up for you, let it out. Because moving that energy, moving that stuckness helps you to forgive yourself, to have compassion for yourself, and to prevent major illness.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Reproductive Rebel. Reproductive Rebel is recorded by certified peri-steam hydrotherapist and acutonics practitioner, herbalist, and Chinese nutritional therapist Adrienne Irizarry of Moon Essence LLC. If you are interested in setting up an appointment for one-on-one support, ordering from our store, or checking out our course offerings, visit our website at moonessence.life. Be sure to subscribe to our newsletter and get insider information on upcoming events and offerings. Join the conversation. Like and follow us at Moon Essence Me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn. Your voices make this program possible. Thank you all for your continued support.